Here's an old book called Brighty of the Grand Canyon. See the burrow? This was published in 1953. 1953. Here we go. Look, there he is. There's Brighty being holed up. See that? All right. Brighty's World. A shaggy young burro lay asleep in the gray dust of the canyon trail, except for the slow heaving of his sides and the occasional flick of an ear. He seemed part of the dust and ageless limestone that rose in the towering battlements behind him. The sun had been shining fiercely on his belly and now began climbing up over his sides, then slowly up the canyon wall. But for a long time the rocks held their heat and the lone figure dozed on. A ground squirrel peered out from a chink in the wall, watching a moment with friendly eyes, then dived back where it came from. A cottontail rabbit played hop, skip, and jump around him, but nothing disturbed the little gray lump, not even a nuthatch hammering away at a juniper tree. It was the wind, an uprising current from the canyon below that finally aroused him. It whirled up his nose and down his ears, tickling him awake. With a grunting sigh, he began rolling, and with each turn just missed falling off his ledge into Bright Angel Creek, hundreds of feet below. Now he sat up on his haunches, squirming his back against the rough-worn limestone. He gave a luxurious yawn and gazed at the opposite wall as if in search of some creature like himself, but there was only rock rising sheer and lonely to the sky. He stretched his forelegs, and then he was up, shaking the dust from his coat, and over the ledge a few spears of bunch grass grew in a crevice. He leaned out into space and cropped them, jaws swinging sideways as he chewed, while his eyes, from under their thatched roof of hair, looked out over his world. It was a world of rock piled up and up, layer on layer, to the sky and down to the Colorado River far below. Slowly, as if balancing the weight of his great ears, the little fellow swung his head round to follow the winding river, his eyes suddenly fixed on a tiny white spot, and at the sight of it he opened wide his jaws, swelled out his nostrils, and began braying, "Yaw! Yaw! Yaw!" Instantly the canyon took up the cry, south wall to the north, and back again it banged and bounced the bray until there was nothing left of it. The burro waited, listening. His ears probed the white spot as if to pull something out of it. There it was, an answering sound, a bellowing hulloa, almost as big and brassy as his own. It set the little burro into action. Down the trail he plunged, zigzagging from ledge to ledge, ears flopping, tail swinging, hoofs toed dancing the narrow path. Once on his way, a kind of momentum took hold of him, and he fairly flew, rounding one cliff after another. Time and again he crossed Bright Angel Creek, a foaming mountain stream that tumbled downward to the river. For yards and yards he walked in its bed, picking his way around the glossy boulders, but he neither drank nor played in the water. Only once did he stop to study his goal. The white spot had grown to a tent, and nearby campfire smoke was curling upward. Satisfied, he plunged on again, always traveling within sight and sound of the busy creek. The afternoon was late, and purple shadows were spilling down the canyon walls when he came at last upon the source of the smoke. An old prospector, that's somebody who would go searching for gold in the water and stuff. An old prospector with flowing white hair was piling driftwood on the fire, and beside the fire stood an iron skillet and a bowl of yellow butter. There he is. There's the prospector, his tent. Okay, now comes the next chapter, a stranger in the canyon. Stepping softly in the sand, the burro sneaked behind the prospector and playfully butted him up from his crouching position. So he bumped his head into him like that. The old man spun around, his face lighting with joy. "Brighty," he shouted happily. "You little old pussyfooter, you una'most upset the batter, to say nothing of me myself." He let the burro nuzzle his grizzly beard. "'Tain't hay," he howled with laughter. He laid more driftwood on the fire, then turned and began scratching Brighty, starting with the scruff of mane and kneading down the dark stripe along his back. "Feller," he thundered above the river's roar, "you sure got an alarum clock in your head. 10 my height if you don't arrive exactly at supper time. It's flapjacks tonight. See, got the batter all done. Ain't it nice and bubbly? The burro began nosing the batter. Oh, no, you don't. The old man pushed the burro's face out of the bowl. You just wait till I flap 'em. Me and you's going to celebrate tonight. He spooned lard into the skillet, and while it was melting, pulled some blue flecked stones from his pocket and held them under Brighty's nose. Sniff 'em, he urged. Sniff 'em good. Where they come from, there's more. A whole bluish green vein of that stuff. And if I could just find somebody to help dig it up, then me and you could pack it out. The burro's ears swung back and forth, asking for more talk. Yup, Bright Angel, you and me struck it rich. We found us enough copper ore to last till kingdom come and maybe after. He took off his black hat and let the wind comb his hair. We'll call our diggins the little Mimi for my sister's gal. It's like this, Brighty, he explained as he stooped to pick up a fallen blue jay's feather. My kid sister had only the one gal, Mimi, and she's crippled in the legs. He stuck the feather into his hatband and smoothed it out. Mimi's purty as an angel, eyes blue as lupine, and curls the color of wood shavings. Now, Brighty, he said, his face shining with plans, with the money from the ore, we'll buy her a wheelchair so she can go scooting through life like a butterfly. He paused to add more lard to the skillet. As for ye, young fellow, when the money rolls in, I'll buy you all kinds of doodads, a tinkly bell for your neck, and a shade hat with holes for your ears, and some flea shoe powder. And Brighty wheeled around, looking, smelling, listening. Hey, hark to me instead of the night noises. It's just the river sawing away at the rocks or some old coyote turning up. But the burro's ears were prying into the night, and his breath snorting in his nose. Humph! Don't hear a thing myself. The old man poured 2 mounds of batter into the skillet. Could be a ring-tailed cat sharpening her toenails in a piece of drift, he said. And then all at once, the prospector caught the movement. The tall figure of a man loomed in the dark. He stalked slowly toward the fire, a dead beaver dangling from one hand. Reckon I scared you, the man grunted. His voice sounded rusty, as if he had not been used for a long time. The prospector stroked the burro's neck, trying to quiet him. Brighty here told me you was a-comin', but I wouldn't believe him. Motionless, except for his fingers twirling the beaver, the stranger sized up the prospector. Then his eyes looked past him to the tent, where a pick and a pan stood outlined against the white canvas. The sweet smell of hotcakes filled the air, and the old man dropped a third spoonful of batter on the skillet. In the shock of seeing a human being, he said, I mighty near forgot to cook for 3 mouths instead of 2. Would you believe it, stranger? I ain't seen a living soul except Uncle Jimmy Owen and Brighty here for upwards of 6 months. I'm mighty glad to meet you. He waited for a glad to meet you too. When none came, he went on, his hand still quieting Brighty. My name's Hezekiah Appleyard, but don't nobody call me that by that handle. What's yours? The stranger moved in closer. The firelight made his small black eyes and black beard gleam, and it picked out the red kerchief around his neck and splashed red on his face. Name's Irons, he said. Jake Irons, beaver trapper. Now that's what I calls a good, short, sensible handle, the old man replied. Folks call me old-timer. When I first heard it, I looks round quick to see if some old guy's behind me. When I see they're referring to me, my hackles rise up. He faced round to the fire and turned to the hissing flapjacks. I'm used to the label now. Fact is, I sort of like it. Makes me feel I'm a show enough candyman. The hard black eyes were on the cakes. You needn't just stand there. Oh, you needn't just stand there gawping, Irons. Come, share our chuck. It'd be kind of nice to listen to man talk for a change, though Brighty here's got a mighty sweet song for a burro. Don't mind if I do. The stranger smiled. I can't, but that's how I looked at it. But only with his lips, his black beard parted briefly, flashing 2 gold teeth, very shiny. The old man could not help admiring them. I come down here to the canyon seeking gold, he said, but I guess gold ain't the onlyest way to get rich. The The pin eyes gave the prospector a sly glance. Then, going over to a flat rock, Iron slapped down the beaver and took out his hunting knife. "Go ahead and skin out your beaver," Old Timer said. "But don't you flaunt the smell in front of old Brighty. He don't like hot meat, nor meat of any kind for that matter." Jake Irons knelt in the sand and with nimble fingers skinned the beaver, setting aside the choice bits of meat before anyone could say scat. A ring-tailed cat leaped up on the rock and made off with the liver. "Ain't she quick, though?" The old man slapped his thigh in admiration. Her name's Wait a Minute, 'cause she never does. Oh, well, you still got the pelt, and that's what you're after." Muttering to himself, Jake Irons stretched the beaver skin, using stones to hold it in place. As he turned around, he almost bumped into Brighty, who stood with hindquarters hunched, threatening to let his heels fly. "Reckon he just a mite jealous about sharing his supper," the old man laughed. "Leastwise, that's what I hope." Well, there you go. 2 chapters from Brighty of Grand Canyon. This is going to be a great book, I can tell already. Margaret Henry. That was the author. More later. Bye.